Sensationally silver, because you are.
Welcome, everyone, to Sensationally Silver, A State of Mind, conversations with extraordinary, ordinary persons of age, people who are going to bring you information, inspiration, and validation. Join us. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Sensationally Silver, A State of Mind, conversations with extraordinary, ordinary persons of age. My guest today is the Reverend Holly Cardone, and she doesn't fit anybody's stereotype of what an Episcopal priest is. That is what she is, but it's only one of the hats she wears. So we're going to learn all about Holly and what's brought her to this place in her life, which is a very interesting place. So welcome, Holly.
Thanks, Robin. I'm so happy to be here. It's such an honor, really, to just be with you in this space. I love it.
Well, thank you. I feel the same way. And I have to start out asking you my first typical question. Holly, how old are you?
Well, as a matter of fact, I'll be 62 years old tomorrow.
Okay. Wow. All right. Well, happy birthday in advance.
Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah. And Holly, this is a question I'm just dying to ask you. What is the most challenging thing in being a priest, an Episcopal priest, a woman who is an Episcopal priest? What's the most challenging part of that?
There's not just one thing for sure. Um, you know, Patriarchy is alive and well, and there's still a little bit of um, the idea that women aren't competent enough, or that there's a very particular idea of how a woman should be a priest, or a clergy person. It's been a very tricky position for me, especially because I am not the typical Episcopal priest. So I have a very outgoing personality. I often have times with trouble with authority. So it's been tricky to navigate that. And when I first became a priest, one of the things you do is you vow to obey your bishop. So there's so much in terms of the balance of internalizing this personal power that we all have because we are children of God, because we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And then there's also dealing with the material world and the people of the material world, and the church as an institution. And so I would say it's the church as an institution is tricky also because people aren't going to church. So and then there's the power struggle, the power dynamic being a priest, because people rely on you. They project on you, of course, whatever baggage they're bringing to church, their life story, their context, how they were raised, their trauma. So each relationship with each individual is different. And then you're working with a congregation as a whole and a bunch of different personalities in that way also. So it's nuanced, it's complex, there's a lot.
So the next natural question for me anyway is, why did you make this choice?
They ask you that. And it was always ironic to me that during the ordination process, they kept asking, well, why do you want to be a priest? And I kept thinking to myself, I don't. If I were called to something else, I would much rather be doing that, because there's the process is demanding, it's rigorous. There are interviews. I had years of waiting between the different steps that you would take to become a postulant, then to become a candidate, then to become ordained. And for me, it was an 8-year process. Going to seminary is in there, and taking ordination exams, which is a 3-day, 6-hour process each day to take these exams. So all through the process, I'm literally like, God, please call me to something else. I and as I was saying earlier about the institution, I didn't even know where I fit into that. How do I'm a recovering alcoholic, a survivor of all kinds of childhood trauma. I've been married 3 times. I was a lesbian for a year and couldn't get a date. How am I going to fit into this institution?
See, everybody, I told you. She's full of surprises. Okay, so how do you fit? Because it sounds like kind of square peg round hole sort of thing, not to mention that patriarchy you're talking about, that whole forever men being in charge of this aspect of living. How do you fit?
I just quit trying to fit in. I could, there was no way I was going to be anybody other than the person I am. And that person who had this serious call in my life from a young age, like I knew at 15 years old, there is something going on here that's in another dimension that I can't see, taste, touch, or feel. There must be, because my life at that time in the material world was too painful and I wasn't successful in it. So I really, really believed that there was something going on. And so my spiritual journey started then, and it took a lot of twists and turns and all these different, all the chaos and all the therapy and all the recovery and all the marriages. And when I got to this part of the ordination process, I needed so much support. And I had tremendous support from actually 2 male priests in my life who were my mentors during the ordination process. And the second mentor, his name is Father Jamie Edwards Acton. He's the priest in charge of St. Stephen's in Hollywood. And I had a nervous breakdown. I was like sobbing on the floor in our parish hall. I was working at the church, and also the postulant. So I was working and acting in every aspect of worship and administration and social justice, outreach, and all sorts of things. And I just was crying. And I said, Jamie, maybe I can't do this. Maybe it's too much. Maybe I'm not meant to be an Episcopal priest. And he said, of course, a profound thing, which I think, of course, comes from God. And he said, Holly, this is not the end of your story. And your story will go on and on. And one of the things you do better than anyone is create community. He said, your relationships with the people of St. Stephen's is more than anyone could ask for. And that's what you do. So he wouldn't let me give up. He would not let me give up. And the Bishop of Los Angeles would not let me give up. So I quit trying to be something else. I wasn't going to go to Harvard, and I was divorced and all of these other things. I was a broken, damaged person on the way to healing, and I just had to embrace that.
So I'm hearing that all the kinds of things that sort of stereotypically would disqualify you for this position in life in a church are actually the gifts that you bring to it. These are the places where, I guess, to use a somewhat hackneyed term these days, the wounded healer, the person who truly understands from the inside out. This isn't theory. This is something you've endured, you've been through, you understand right to the core of your being. And when someone else is going through that, you're right there with them. You're not going, oh, gee, that must be hard. You're going, I know. Is that pretty accurate?
Yes, absolutely. And I can embrace it, as this your podcast so beautifully encompasses, right? So where are we in this journey of life that now over 60, where is it going to lead? And as I've become wiser and gentler to myself, consequently, I'm wiser and gentler to others and more compassionate, right? I carried so much self-hatred because I wasn't an intellectual. The Episcopal Church is full of intellectual priests. And I wasn't going to go to Harvard. And I was a high school dropout and a runaway and all of these other things. I didn't look like the other women priests. And I, when I was able to finally embrace that, and as I've matured, that sense of self-love and self-acceptance, I've been able to embrace others in that same vein, right? So, and I think consequently, and I'm sure you know this from your background as a therapist, right? People are drawn to people who will listen non-judgmentally. And I will often get feedback from sermons or sharing in other ways like, oh my gosh, thank you for saying that. Because if you're going that through that and you're the priest, well, then that means I'm okay. Like they can finally take up space in the world and be like, oh, you mean I'm not going to quote unquote burn in hell for whatever sin I've committed? I'm like, look, I walk into a church, every Sunday. I have not been struck by lightning. And I am sure in my life, I have done way worse things than you may have ever done. And people are comforted, and they're grateful. I read a book. I did actually a book review, and one of my former seminary professors had asked me to do this review. And what the book was, Why Can't Church Be More Like Alcoholics Anonymous? And the premise was, why are we hiding the truth of who we are? We walk into some recovery meeting, we say the thing that should be the most shaming thing about us. And people say, oh my God, we're so glad you're here. We love you. Please come back.
Holly, this makes me think of something that happened to me many years ago. My book was so big, and I was invited to be the speaker that ended everything at a conference for marriage and family therapists. And I could not get together what I was going to say because I was getting my third divorce. That's not what the book was talking about. It was talking about how to have happily ever after when you get all this recovery. I'm getting my third divorce. I was on my knees in my hotel room for hours. Couldn't get it. Finally, I'm in the room. And I thought, oh, well, here we go. So I just told him what was going on. And I talked about how it's really deadly to our practice as therapists to keep secrets. And I know that's not a common theory amongst therapists, that you're supposed to be so kind of blank, and then the other person gets to do all the projecting and all that. It's not my approach. And it wasn't in that room. And when I was all finished, I had one man sitting in the front row and he kept nodding really hard. And he kept me going because I was really scared. But I just laid it all out that just like you're saying, Holly, the thing that we have to offer is our humanity, not some sort of faux perfectionism, like I have all the answers and I'm going to share those with you if you're really good and you write me a check. No. Well, when I was finished, I absolutely ran out of that room, ran out. And somebody grabbed me, and I ended up talking to people for hours after that. Everyone was coming up telling me how important it was to them. One woman knew she was a lesbian, was so scared of letting anybody know. And this was a long time ago. There wasn't as much acceptance as there is now. And I kind of could help her see that maybe that's the best thing she brought to her practice. So what you're saying makes so much sense. And to all of you who are watching or listening, if you've been wondering up to now, why is Robin talking to a minister, the Reverend Holly? What's this about? It's about this. It's about being who we are. And at this point in life, no matter what calling we have or what position we play in the world, I think it's more important than ever. It's our gift to ourselves, and it's our gift to the world. That's what I'm hearing you say, Holly.
Mm-hmm.
Bring that
Yeah.
to the table. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I'm a big fan of Brene Brown, and that's what she exploded onto the cultural scene with, right? That vulnerability and that authenticity. And it was mind blowing to me. It was mind blowing. And the sharing of stories. I was listening to a podcast last night on be charismatic people. And the professor said, um, reminded me, we are storytelling animals. We put everything in context. Our brain wants to understand what is going on around me. And the most damaging thing I can do is to tell a false narrative, to pretend I'm somebody I'm not. And as you're saying, it's not helpful to the people around me. It's not helpful to me. And this is the storytelling informs our community, bringing people in. And if I want to be an authentic leader, because essentially I have people project this power onto you as a priest, as a therapist, everything that you're talking about, right? This is this power that is not real, because the power for me that I understand now, what's real is this God inside of me that I'm here to open myself up to, in order to allow myself to be honest and true about who I am, so that other people can find that truth within them and begin that healing process. So it's all healing. It's all healing. We just spend this. I had a therapist who said the whole journey is just this journey back to yourself. And then, as Ram Dass says, we're just walking each other home, right? So it's a beautiful journey. And the other thing I think that I spent so much time in my head about was blaming myself for all of my problems, like what you're talking about. I read your book in the 80s. I loved it. I talk about it to everyone. I talk about this profound influence of this book, Women Who Love Too Much, because we had no language to talk about why won't he change? Why aren't they changing? Why do I find myself angry and resentful that I'm doing the dishes and doing the laundry? And where am I in this process? And I needed that language to then be able to begin the process of this internal understanding, plus a lot more therapy and a lot of more 12-step recovery and a lot more spirituality to begin to see how it's all put together. So I think, I love that you said you wrote this book that changed women's lives across the world, and then said, and I was on my third divorce. Because we have these profound gifts to share. I can tell you, look, this is what I do, and I can still be in the process of growing and changing and healing and being of service in the world. So one does not X out the other, right? It's just the experience, all the experience. I love that story that you told. So thank you for that.
Well, and when I was going through that divorce, and that, I mean, it felt like an ending, and it felt like I'd been really less than honest with all these people who were reading the book. To put it very simply, I wanted to die. And I got very, very sick, and I came just within an inch of dying. And I didn't, obviously. That was when I was 42. And I thought, there's no future for me. I have nothing ahead. It's all empty. But what that did was create the most incredible turning point in my life, where I kind of left behind the psychological approach to life and really dove into a kind of an esoteric spiritual thing that has been the theme of my life ever since. And it's been such a gift, but I had no idea. I thought everything was over. I didn't know I was kind of giving birth to a new me. Oh gosh, that sounds so kind of exaggerated, but it's exactly how it feels. It's like a dimension of me just came awake, and it took years for it to come awake, and it's still awakening, but it's very, very exciting to me. So these epiphanies that we have, sometimes they're dark, they're like, oh my God, I've failed at what I wanted to be. And then it's actually not a door closing, but a door opening. Tell me about some of your epiphanies, some of the things that have just changed the direction of your life.
Yeah, and I think what you're speaking of, that profound grief of the way it was supposed to be, and it's not that way anymore, and it's that empty hallway that we often talk about. I worked 8 years at this, really my whole life. I got a bachelor's degree in religious studies. I went to church. I read every spiritual book you could read. I was reading uh, um, um, Warren Beatty's sister,
Shirley MacLaine.
Shirley MacLaine. I was reading Shirley MacLaine out on a limb. I read, everything I could get my hands on. And so I've been on this path for a long time. And in this particular denomination, as I said, it could be a long process. It was 8 years. And in 2019, I got my first full-time church. And um, I'm somebody who can make a lot of meaning out of everything, right? Everything is meaningful to me. And I was just like profoundly grateful and felt so uh, humble and like, wow, I was humbled. I was like, wow, God, thank you so much. And it was on the outside, it looked like a disaster. And on the inside, I know that I was being taken down to a level of honesty that I would not have gotten to had everything worked out great. It did not go great. I ended up losing that congregation. I was unable to work as a priest for a while. I literally got fired essentially from the thing that I had been working towards my whole life, exactly what you're talking about. It was devastating. I did not know how I was going to recover. I felt because my identity was wrapped up in it, right? This is who I am. And, uh, I could just relate to everything that you said about I had to, I grieved it all, right? I just grieved all of it. And once the disappointment and the humiliation and shame in myself that I had not been able to be successful in this thing that I had set out to do, um, grieving that, learning to love all those parts of myself, coming back to you did the best you could. And now, so that was 2023. So it's been 3 years now, February. I lost the job, 2023. Seeing it from the perspective I am now, it was the best thing that ever happened to me, even though it was profoundly painful. I came to live with my mom in Los Angeles. My daughter was living here at the time. She just moved out. We were 3 generations of women living in the same house. My relationship with my mother has taken a turn that I never could have imagined because I was able to let go of all the anger that I was carrying around for many years, even though I thought I was over it. I wasn't over it because there are layers, right? There's layers and layers, and now I'm working with formerly unhoused folks. I'm a case manager. I am talking to people every day who have suffered severe trauma and setbacks in their life, who have struggling with severe mental health issues and drug addiction and alcoholism. So my path, which is what I wanted, was to serve, right? I'm here to serve God in the Christian tradition. I'm here to serve God in Jesus. And I had to lose all that to really find myself. And as you said, it's a long process and we keep moving forward. We just keep moving. And there's more to discover. I'll say this last thing. My mother's 92. She's an Al Anon. She's been an Al Anon many, many, many years. She had a profound spiritual experience forgiving her father at 89 years old. And she said, well, I'm not done yet. We're just never done.
We're never done. So important. And for all of you who don't know what Al Anon is, it's for the families and friends of alcoholics. Not everybody knows that there's this entire huge anonymous program for the families and friends of people who have this really unbelievably difficult disease. It's not like any other disease. The shame attached to alcoholism is so profound. And one of the things that gets said about alcoholism is you can die of it even when you don't have it. And that's all the families and friends who spend so much time stressing, trying to fix things that they don't have the power to fix. And so they have the same steps that the people in AA do. They're powerless over alcohol. Their lives have become unmanageable, and all the other 11 steps. And it saves people's lives. And sometimes it's also a huge factor in alcoholics getting sober. When everybody around them stops trying to save them, then sometimes they have that opportunity to take responsibility for their condition and make some changes. So that's pretty big. That's big stuff. And, for all of you who are still wondering, why am I listening to this thing about being a minister? It's not about being a minister in terms of the Reverend Holly. It's about being a minister in life, or some other word that you want to use to substitute for that word, but caring for, from the place where we learn to care for ourselves, and then we care for others, and we let them know that we share their condition. I think it becomes more important as we get older. When we're younger, we're so busy. We don't have time to really think about these things. But as we get older, it's a lot of what we think about. What's my life? What's the meaning of my life? What am I here to do? Did I do it? Have I accomplished it yet? And what I'm hearing you say, Holly, is maybe not yet. Maybe there are some more doors to open, right?
Yeah, right. Absolutely. And those are the best parts. I never understood life as an adventure. People would say life is an adventure. And I'm like, oh my gosh, no, it's not. Life is like a struggle. And as I've just grown in this compassion and acceptance for myself and my place in the world, I see, life is an adventure. Because what will be the next thing that will inspire me to grow in ways that I couldn't have imagined before? And I think what you said is so profoundly true. We're all here to just take care of each other, and taking care of ourselves first, as you're saying. That I am not going to be the best person that I can be each day if I'm not doing all of those things that I need to do to make sure that I am staying strong and centered in myself and in my spiritual life, in my own recovery. So there's a lot of moving parts. Sometimes it feels like a full-time job just to be like a person on the planet. And some days it's just really easy, and you're in that flow, and it's just a beautiful experience. So and gratitude is such a big part of that too, just seeing life as a gift. It took me many years to see, life is a gift, and we're supposed to be having fun. Sometimes I forget just to have fun.
So important, so important. And I've learned, and I'm assuming that lots of people have learned who have been around a long time, that very often, maybe every single time, the things that we think are the worst that have ever happened to us, the things that we have the most shame about, the things that we would never have asked for, never, never. In fact, we spend a lot of time hoping they never happen to us. Those can be the biggest gifts, the greatest opportunities to grow in directions that are so magnificent. That's been true for me over and over again. Every single time it's been something that I thought was awful, it's turned into something that just has opened doors. I don't know a better way to say it. Open doors to who I am and what I can do. And I'm hoping that all of us as we age are beginning to get that perspective that we haven't been a victim. We've been given opportunities to change direction, to redefine ourselves, to let go of old ideas about what's good and bad and right and wrong, and come more fully into our humanity. And that's what I'm hearing you talking about, Holly. You embracing your humanity as the gift you can give other people.
Yeah, I think that's true. I was just reflecting on this idea that, I'm not responsible for what happened to me as a kid. I'm not I am a victim of a lot of different kinds of trauma and abuse, but I reached adulthood and I'm 100% responsible in now healing all of those parts of myself. And it's a big ask. It's a big ask. And I think so much of what we see and what we're seeing in our culture is a lot of damaged people not taking responsibility for healing, and consequently there's so much acting out in dramatically destructive ways that are affecting everyone. So it's being fully accountable for our lives and for the direction of our lives and for this relationship with ourselves that will affect the relationships with everybody around us. It's Brene Brown says we blame other people because we're not comfortable with taking responsibility. We're trying to discharge discomfort when I blame somebody else, because sitting in that discomfort is so painful. And that's what we've talked about in those situations where it hasn't gone our way and we were devastated by them and there was so much emotional pain, and as you said, physical pain, right, coming so close to death. It is a beautiful metaphor because there's a choice. Am I going to radically change, or am I going to just expire? And that's what happens when people get sober, having to make that radical decision of going 180 degrees, or am I gonna just sacrifice myself to whatever this pain is? So takes tremendous courage. And I often say, especially to women in recovery, we're warriors. Warriors. We are warriors. We are showing up and doing the deal. And motherhood, we haven't even gone there, right? I mean, there are so many turning points in our lives where we just keep showing up, and it takes that tremendous courage and heart. And I think we need to give ourselves credit for being strong, independent, courageous warrior women who've been married 3 times. Thank you very much.
Yeah, all experience, strength, and hope. Yeah, all chapters to this unfolding book of our lives. And we haven't gotten to the end yet. I heard someone say the other day, she was talking about just things unfolding, and she said, to be continued. And I love that phrase. I love it, to be continued. Let's see what's on the next page. Let's see how that goes. Let's see what surprises it has. So I guess I want to say to our viewers and our listeners today, there are surprises ahead if we don't just clamp down and try to keep all the doors closed and hang on to whatever we think we have been. We can keep on opening. We can keep on discovering. And Holly, your life has been a journey of discovery, learning how to embrace the parts of you that had shame attached, had pain attached, all of that. It reminds me of that line from After the Fall. We finally have to take our life in our own arms. We really do. We have to take it like a damaged child and hold it and find it precious and worthy and wish it the best. And from there, we can expand into loving ourselves, loving other people. We can't really love other people if we can't love ourselves. There used to be this business called Corbs, and they sold Levi's and things, and they had this saying, you can't do business from an empty wagon. And I love that. We have to have our own wagon filled in order to give something of worth, make it available to other people. So we get to fill our own wagon and not feel guilty about that. That's a good thing, a very, very good thing. Mm-hmm. I'm hoping for everybody who's joined us today that we've helped fill your wagon. I'm so glad you joined us, Holly, and gave us your message of what is it? Metamorphosis, I think, just changing and changing and changing and finding the way to fit what we love doing and loving ourselves, even if we've broken a lot of rules. What are they for anyway, those rules, right? So Thank you, Holly, for being my guest and for talking to all of us today and sharing some of this journey with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. And thank you to all of you. And join us next time. Bye for now. Great news, everybody. Our premier hair care product line, Sensationally Silver, is now available on Amazon. You can order it so easily, you can get it so quickly, and you can be so sensationally silver.
Sensationally silver.